Good morning everybody. In last lecture we had seen the methods of breaking dormancy. आठवते सगळ्यांना? So there are some causes of dormancy, why dormancy developed in the seed, and then especially in case of agricultural crop seed we'll have to break the dormancy, then and then only seeds are able to germinate. The capacity of a seed to germinate is known as viability. Seeds are viable means seeds are able to germinate. And in any plant life, seed germination is the first step of growth, okay? Where seed germinates and develops into a small plantlet or small seedling, and later it may develop by following the phases, that is vegetative phase, then it become matured and able to reproduce, so that is reproductive phase, and then gradually when it lost the ability of reproduction, it enters into the mature phase later enter into senescence phase, and ultimately into death. Okay, so this is how the plant develops. So in last lecture we had seen methods of breaking seed dormancy. Now when we observe the seed germination, right, then there are different methods or types of seed germination, right? First one, hypogeal germination, hypogeal seed germination, right? Then second method is epigeal, and third method is viviparous germination. So these are three methods of seed germination, right? So first of all, hypogeal seed germination. So what is hypogeal seed germination? Let's see. Hypogeal seed germination. So hypo means below, geo means soil, G-E-O, geo means soil, right? Hypogeal seed germination means when during the seed germination, if cotyledons remain below the soil, then the process is known as hypogeal seed germination. Okay, so here in this seed germination, cotyledons remains below the soil. Cotyledons remains below soil during the process, right? Then how seed germinates? Then suppose this is a soil level and this is suppose whole seed, right? So during germination, seed absorb water, then entry of water stimulates some specific enzymes in the seed, right? And then the radicle emerge outside the seed, right? So this is second step, and then next one, that is plumule. Comes outside the, right? So this part, now we know very well that in case of seed, embryo which is present inside the seed, that consists of embryo axis, this we had already seen in morphology of flowering plants, right? So that embryo axis has two terminals, two tips, radicle and plumule, and there is a cotyledon present which is attached with this embryo axis at a point. That point is known as first node, right? And the part of embryo axis below the cotyledon is generally known as hypocotyle or hypocotyl, and the part of embryo axis above the cotyledon is generally known as epicotyl, right? So here in case of hypogeal seed germination, epicotyl part of the embryo axis grows rapidly and it forms a hook-like structure during the seed germination. And this epicotyl part then push the plumule above the soil where it left cotyledon below the soil. So in this way, suppose if this is the seed, then so this is how, so this part is epicotyl. So epicotyl push plumule above the soil and cotyledon left below the soil. So this kind of germination is known as hypogeal seed germination. So here cotyledons remain below the soil during the seed germination. Which part of embryo axis grows faster? Epicotyl grows faster or rapid growth of epicotyl is observed, and epicotyl push plumule above the soil. Plumule above the soil during the process of seed germination. Okay, it means what? When cotyledons remain below the soil during the seed germination, then the process is known as hypogeal seed germination. Okay, which part of embryo axis grows faster in this process? Epicotyl. उलट लक्षात ठेवायचं. Hypogeal seed germination मध्ये epicotyl part of embryo axis grows faster, and that epicotyl which grows very fast and forms hook-like structure that push the plumule above the soil, left cotyledons below the soil. Okay, and later radicle develops into root system and plumule develops into shoot system. The plumule which comes above the soil later start developing very small 2 or 3 green colored leaves. Once the green colored leaves form in this seedling, then the seedling become autonomous, that is, it can prepare its own food. So this is hypogeal seed germination. Then second type is epigeal seed germination. Epigeal seed germination. So in case of epigeal seed germination, epi means above and geo means soil. When cotyledons come above the soil during the seed germination, the process is known as epigeal seed germination. Okay, कडुनिंबाचं जी लिंबोळी म्हणतो आपण, फ्रूट पडतं आता उन्हाळ्यामध्ये, आणि पावसाळ्यामध्ये हे फ्रूट काय होतात, डेव्हलप इनटू सीडलिंग किंवा डेव्हलप इनटू स्मॉल प्लांटलेट. कधी बघितलंय लिंबोळी ग्रो होताना? बोथ द cotyledons come above the soil, especially in case of tamarind, चिंचुका, चिंच, त्याच्या सीडला आपण चिंचुका म्हणतो मराठीमध्ये, हो की नाही? तो कधी जर्मिनेट होताना बघितलाय? बोथ द cotyledons come above the soil. So such a kind of seed germination is epigeal seed germination. So what happens especially? Cotyledons come above the soil. Cotyledons come above the soil. Above the soil during the seed germination, right? And which part of embryo axis grows faster? Here hypocotyl part of embryo axis grows faster, right? So hypocotyl grows faster, or rapid growth of hypocotyl is observed. So that hypocotyl which forms hook-like structure that push cotyledons as well as plumule above the soil. So hypocotyl push cotyledons and plumule. Cotyledons and plumule above the soil. In which seeds or in which plants hypogeal seed germination is mainly observed? So most of monocot seeds. Some exceptions are there, no doubt about it. And in case of epigeal seed germination, most of dicot seeds undergo epigeal seed germination, right? So example for hypogeal seed germination, most of monocots. Most of monocots. And what is the example of epigeal seed germination? Most of dicot seeds. Again here exception is there, for example Vallisneria seeds, right? So there are definitely some exceptions present. So most of monocot seeds shows hypogeal seed germination and most of dicot seed shows epigeal seed germination. So let's see how this epigeal seed germination takes place. If this is the soil, then how that seed shows the germination. Suppose this is a seed present below the soil. We are sowing the seeds. Then seed absorb water, right, and undergo germination. It starts developing embryo. That is, embryo grows and protrudes radicle outside the seed. Radicle grows in downward direction, and then now which part of radicle? Hypocotyl part grows fast and forms such a hook-like structure. Right? So this is actually hypocotyl. Now this hypocotyl push plumule as well as cotyledons. So these are cotyledons and this is a plumule, right? So these are cotyledons. When cotyledons come above the soil, initially they may be thick, but later they become thin, green colored leaf-like structure, right? So finally the structure appears like this. Now these are green colored thin cotyledons, and this develop plumule, where plumule later starts giving green colored leaves. Okay, so cotyledons, when they come above the soil, they may be thick, but later they are converted into thin green colored leaves. So these are first leaves. These are also known as cotyledonary leaves, right? So see here, due to rapid growth of hypocotyle, cotyledons as well as plumule both pushed above the soil, whereas in this case, due to rapid growth of epicotyle, only plumule pushed above the soil. Because what is epicotyle? The part of embryaxis above the cotyledon. Hence cotyledon remain below the soil, and only plumule, that is the upper part, is pushed above the soil, right? Whereas here, hypocotyle is the part of embryaxis below the cotyledon. When it grows faster, it will push cotyledon as well as plumule above the soil. So these are the two types, that is hypogeal and epigeal seed germination, right? In case of hypogeal, cotyledons remain below the soil, and which part of embryaxis grows faster? Epicotyle, that push plumule above the soil. Whereas in epigeal seed germination, cotyledons come above the soil. Which part of embryaxis grows faster? Hypocotyle, and hypocotyle push cotyledons as well as plumule above the soil. So these are first two methods of seed germination. Now third method, that is viviparous germination. Viviparous germination of seed. So in which plants this is observed? Let's see. So third method is viviparous seed germination. So in case of viviparous seed germination, it is mainly observed in halophytes or mangroves, mangrove plants. Mangrove plants, we had already seen these examples. In case of nematophores, these are the plants which are growing in saline marshy soil near the seashore, where the salinity in the soil is more, right? So such plants which are growing in saline marshy soil, those are called halophytes or mangrove plants, right? So it is very commonly observed in the seeds of plants like Rhizophora or Avicennia, Heritiera, right? Soneracea, these are the examples. Okay. Now what is viviparous seed germination? So here seed germinates within the fruit while fruit is still attached to the parent plant. Here, imagine if these plants shed off their fruits or seeds, then those seeds may fall on the ground, and below the soil is saline and marshy. दलदलीची जागा आहे जिथे सॉल्ट कॉन्सन्ट्रेशन खूप जास्त आहे. आता अशा सॉल्ट कॉन्सन्ट्रेशन जास्त असलेल्या जमिनीमध्ये जर सीड पडलं, then seed is unable to survive because outer solution become hypertonic, right? So water may lost from seed cells. So how seed can germinate in such soil? So plant develop a new mechanism of seed germination, right? Here seeds are germinated within the fruit, and the fruit is still attached to the parent plant. It is not detached or separated from the parent plant. This germination is known as viviparous germination. So what is the definition, right? What is viviparous seed germination? Seed germinates within the fruit, while fruit is still attached to parent plant or mother plant. So it is the process of germination of seed inside the fruit while the fruit is still attached to the parent plant. Okay. So seed germinates within the fruit while fruit is still attached to parent plant. The process is known as viviparous seed germination. So how it occurs? Let's see. So suppose this is the branch of that mangrove plant, right? And to this branch the fruit is developed. Suppose this is the fruit developed on that halophyte plant or mangrove plant, right? So this is the fruit of that plant, right? Now once the seeds completes the growth of embryo inside, in these seeds there is no dormancy observed. The seed starts germinating inside the fruit. Once it completes its embryo growth, that is fully developed embryo when formed, that embryo later starts germination, right? And due to the embryo germination, after some time, when seed germinates within that fruit and develops radicle, then after some time the radical comes outside the fruit in the form of a small white colored rod shaped structure. So now this is the fruit, right? And this is the radicle. Okay, right. Now how the process occurs? Inside the fruit seeds are present. Inside the seed embryo is developed. When there is a full growth of embryo occurs in the seed, embryo starts germination. That is, seed starts germination. Where? Inside the fruit. So seed absorb moisture whatever present inside the fruit. Then embryo axis grows and it protrudes through the seed coat and enters into the fruit. Later it grows in the length and that radicle gradually protrudes outside the fruit by breaking the fruit wall. It comes outside like this. Okay. Then next step is, now once the radicle comes outside the fruit wall, right, that radicle shows rapid growth of hypocotyle, that is the part of embryo axis present below the cotyledon, right? And it grows rapidly and forms a wedge shape structure, right? So the structure becomes like this. Initially a very small white colored rod shaped structure is developed, that is nothing but radicle. Just above the radicle, which part of embryo axis is there? Hypocotyle. So later that hypocotyle grows very fast and it starts storing the food and the shape of that hypocotyle becomes wedge shaped. Wedge shaped, right? Okay, and this tip is nothing but radicle, right? Now due to storage of food, the whole structure becomes heavy in weight, right? Now see how events takes place during this germination. Here inside the fruit seeds are present. Seed consists of embryo. When embryo get matured, when there is complete development of embryo occurs, then embryo starts germinating, that is seed starts germinating within the fruit. First of all, radicle emerged through the seed, it comes into the fruit part, then it breaks the fruit wall and comes outside the fruit in the form of a white colored rod shaped structure, radicle. Now the hypocotyle part of this embryo axis grows very fast and it starts storing the food and its shape becomes wedge shaped, right? So the tip of this hypocotyle is nothing but radicle, and see the structure appears. How it appears? It's a very big heavy structure which is wedge shaped. Once the weight of this structure increases, आता याचं weight जसं वाढतं तसं काय होतं? After having a very that is large structure with maximum weight, then it is detached from the parent plant. आता imagine करा की has a wedge shaped आणि जड structure जर खाली पडलं plant पासून, that fruit get detached and this wedge shaped structure when fall on the ground below, which kind of soil is there? Muddy, saline, marshy soil. So this heavy structure land on the soil, in the straight way, right? आता खाली जमीन कशी आहे, सलाइन मार्शी आहे. ओके, इमॅजिन करा की हे वेज शेप heavy structure fall on the ground, so it may remain straight into the soil like this. Once it may penetrate into this saline marshy soil readily, the lower tip, that is radicals, start producing lateral roots to fix the structure properly into the soil, right? And above, the plumule grows in the length and start developing leaves. Is it clear? Now, if the structure land on the soil in a straight manner, then definitely its plumule part will not come in contact with such a saline marshy soil, and hence it may start developing leaves and a new plant is formed. Lower tip, that is radical, start developing lateral roots to fix that structure properly in that muddy soil. पण समजा जर ते आडवं पडलं तर that plumule may come in contact with highly hypertonic solution in that soil and it may destroy it. If it land on the soil obliquely, then also it may develop into new plant because plumule do not come in contact with saline solution, hypertonic solution, right? So see how plant develops a new mechanism of seed germination. Because if seed fall in such saline marshy soil, seed is not able to germinate. So maximum germination occurs within the fruit, then the structure becomes heavy in weight, then it may fall on the ground and land on the soil in a straight way. Now till then the structure is strong enough to bear the salinity in the soil. आता हे स्ट्रक्चर एवढं स्ट्रॉंग बनलेलं आहे की आता जरी ते सलाइन मार्शी सॉइल मध्ये पडलं तरी त्यातलं असलेलं सॉल्ट कॉन्सन्ट्रेशन या सेल सहन करू शकतील. And hence new plant is developed in this way. The method is known as viviparous seed germination. So what is vivipary? It is the germination of seed inside the fruit while the fruit is still attached to the parent plant. When the structure becomes heavy wedge shaped, then and then only it gets detached from the parent plant, fall on the ground, it may fall straight in the marshy soil and it may fixed into the soil by producing lateral roots and upper plumule start developing green colored leaves and develop into new plant. Okay, so these are three different types of seed germination: hypogeal seed germination, epigeal seed germination, viviparous seed germination. Hypogeal seed germination is observed in most of monocot seeds. Epigeal seed germination observed in most of dicot seeds. Some exceptions are there, no doubt about it. And then this viviparous seed germination, which is especially observed in halophytes or mangrove plants. Okay, so these are types of seed germination, right? Now some terms are given in NCERT, even in state board book, new state board book. So let's describe these terms. In this first one, plasticity. So what is this plasticity? Right? Plants may give response to environment, right? Plants generally give response to environments or different phases of the development of the plant, and with respect to that they may produce different kinds of structures. This ability of plant to give response to the environmental factor is known as plasticity, right? So plant may give response to the environmental conditions and they may develop different kinds of structures in the different phases of life cycle, and this ability of producing different kinds of structure with respect to the environment is known as plasticity, right? For this purpose plant follow different pathways to give response to environment, so this ability is known as plasticity, right? So plant follows different pathway to give response to or in response to environment or phases of life cycle produce different kinds of structures. Right? This ability is called plasticity. So it is an ability of a plant to produce different kinds of structure in response to environment or phases of life cycle is known as plasticity. Okay? So plasticity can be very well explained in case of, for example, heterophily or heterophily in cotton, coriander and larkspur. These are the names of plants. Larkspur, botanical name is Delphinia or Delphina. Right? Okay, so what is the meaning of this? When we observe coriander in its juvenile phase, when the plant is very small, then the shape of leaf is something different. But when it becomes adult, mature plant, then the shape of leaf changes. So different shape of leaves produced in the plant in different phases of its life cycle is nothing but plasticity, right? And this, as the shape of leaf changes in different stages of life cycle of this plant, it is known as heterophily. So heterophily in some plant is one of the example of plasticity of that plant. Okay? म्हणजे कोथिंबीर जेव्हा एकदम छोटंसं प्लांटलेट असतं तेव्हा आता कोथिंबीरीच्या पानांचा शेप वेगळा असतो आणि जेव्हा ते मॅच्युअर बनतं, ॲडल्ट बनतं, तेव्हा त्यातल्या पानांचा शेप चेंज होतो. Even in cotton, in juvenile phase, the shape of leaf is different, and in adult phase, the shape of leaf is different. So this is one of the example of plasticity, which is known as heterophily. In case of coriander and coriander and cotton, this heterophily is intrinsic heterophily. It means it is due to internal factors of the plant. It is not with respect to the environment, but it is genetic change. So that is known as intrinsic heterophily. Extrinsic heterophily is observed in case of another example, that is buttercup. The name is Ranunculus. Ranunculus flabellus. हे एकदा चेक करा तुम्ही बुक मध्ये, स्टेट बोर्ड बुक मध्ये हे नवीन नाव दिलेलं आहे. फ्लॅबेलस आहे का फ्लॅबेलिस आहे ते बघायला लागेल. ओके, सो buttercup is the common name of that plant. Ranunculus flabellus is botanical name, right? So in this plant, when it grows in aquatic environment in the water, the shape of leaf is different, and when it grows on the land, the shape of leaf changes, right? So this is with respect to the habitat, in which condition that plant grows, so that decides the shape of leaf. Hence, it is an example of extrinsic heterophily, right? So buttercup, right? Buttercup shows extrinsic heterophily, because here the change in the shape of leaf, that is especially due to environmental factors, whereas heterophily in cotton and coriander, that is an example of intrinsic heterophily. It is due to internal factors of the plant. Okay, so in case of buttercup, right? In case of buttercup, when the plant grows in water, right, in aquatic condition, then the leaf has a thread-like structure. Shape of leaf is thread-like. Okay, but when it grows on terrestrial habitat, that is on land, then the leaf shows dorsiventral leaf, that is it is having highly expanded leaf lamina. Okay, so here the structure of leaf shape, that is the leaf shape especially, changes with respect to change in the habitat, with respect to change in the environmental condition. Hence it is an example of extrinsic heterophily. So an ability of a plant to develop different kinds of structure in response to the environment or different phases of life cycle is nothing but plasticity. Okay, so this is about plasticity. Then some terms are described, that is differentiation, de-differentiation and re-differentiation. Differentiation, de-differentiation and re-differentiation. So what is differentiation? When meristematic cells divides and forms daughter cells, and when daughter cells lost the ability of cell division and they start elongation and become mature, and after maturation the cells are differentiated to perform a specific function. So when meristematic cells first differentiated and form permanent cell, that is differentiation, normal differentiation. Okay, right. So meristematic cells, अगदीच जर आपण सोप्या भाषेत बघायचं म्हणलं तर काय होईल? मेरिस्टेमॅटिक सेल्स, राइट, डिवाइड्स, राइट, फॉर्म्स डॉटर सेल्स. Daughter cells become matured, right? And whatever they start performing function, that is nothing but differentiation, right? So perform specific function. Perform specific function. So this is the process due to which the different primary tissues form, primary permanent tissues forms in the plant like parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, cortical cells, etc. So the result of first differentiation is formation of primary permanent tissue in the plant, right? So for example, these are parenchyma cells, right? So which is a primary permanent tissue. Now parenchyma, once the daughter meristematic cells differentiated as parenchyma cells, it means the cells lost the ability of cell division and now they start performing a specific function. It may be storage of food, it may be photosynthesis, it may be arenchyma. So these are all performing a specific function. So that is first differentiation. Okay. Now, what is de-differentiation? At the time of secondary growth, when primary permanent tissue regain the capacity of cell division, then this differentiation is known as de-differentiation. It means it is second time differentiation. Okay. एक मेरिस्टेमॅटिक सेल डिवाइड झाली, तिने काही डॉटर सेल्स तयार केल्या, डॉटर सेल्सनी सेल डिव्हिजन ॲबिलिटी लॉस्ट केली and they elongates, become mature and they start performing a function, normal function. It is first differentiation. But at the time of secondary growth, when again the plant require the division and when the primary permanent tissue regain the ability of cell division, then that differentiation is known as de-differentiation, right? So this parenchyma, living parenchyma cells in the plant, when regain the capacity of cell division, then their differentiation is known as de-differentiation, right? So what is de-differentiation? It is the second time differentiation in the primary permanent living cells, that is parenchyma. And what is the result of this de-differentiation? Formation of interfascicular cambium and cork cambium is the result of de-differentiation. You might have seen this in anatomy of flowering plants, right? So what is de-differentiation? Right? So here primary permanent living tissue. What is that primary permanent living tissue? Parenchyma. Where it is present in some parts of plant. In some parts of plant. Right? This parenchyma, if regain the capacity of cell division, this differentiation is known as de-differentiation. When this primary permanent living tissue like parenchyma, which is present in some parts of plant, regain the capacity of cell division, it means it is once again differentiated, is known as dedifferentiation. What is the example or result of this? For example, interfascicular cambium. Another example, cork cambium. Cork cambium is the result of dedifferentiation because the cells of cortex, which are just below the epidermis, regain the capacity of cell division, once again start division, once again become meristematic. Then the process is known as dedifferentiation. Okay, so here regain the capacity of cell division or once again become meristematic. Okay, they lost the ability of cell division and they become parenchyma. But again the same parenchyma develop the capacity of cell division, once again become meristematic. The process is known as dedifferentiation. Now what is redifferentiation? So redifferentiation is the process where the dedifferentiated daughter cells, now the tissue which once again become meristematic, obviously start division. आता जर ही टिश्यू परत मेरिस्टेमॅटिक बनली तर ती काय करेल, परत डिव्हिजन करेल, फॉर्म्स डॉटर सेल्स, and when that daughter cells are third time differentiated to perform a specific function, then the process is known as redifferentiation. Okay, so what is redifferentiation? Right, dedifferentiated meristematic cells divides to form daughter cells, and when these daughter cells are differentiated to perform a specific function, the process is known as redifferentiation. Okay, so dedifferentiated meristeme divides and forms daughter cells. When these daughter cells are differentiated to perform a function किंवा आपण याला इथे लिहू खाली, differentiated to perform a function, a specific function, then the process is known as redifferentiation. This process is called redifferentiation. And what is the result of this redifferentiation? Secondary phloem, secondary xylem, secondary cork cells, secondary cortex cells. These are the results of redifferentiation. See, vascular cambium when become active, it cuts off some cells towards inner side, some cells towards outer side. Inner side cells which are in contact with primary xylem, they are differentiated later as secondary xylem. So secondary xylem is the result of redifferentiation. Some cells which are cuts off towards outer side, they may later differentiate as secondary phloem cells. So secondary phloem cells is the result of redifferentiation. So these are the terms differentiation, dedifferentiation and redifferentiation. Differentiation, normal first differentiation. Dedifferentiation where permanent living cells regain the capacity of cell division, once again become meristematic, dedifferentiation. And when these dedifferentiated cells produce daughter cells and they are differentiated to perform a specific function, the process is redifferentiation. So these are different terms given in our book, right? Now, after this, in case of animals, some specific complex organic substances are produced which helps in proper growth and development of that animal body, where these complex organic substances which are used up in the metabolism are called hormones, right? So such hormones even developed or secreted by plants also. Plants also require some specific complex organic substances which helps in proper growth and development of these plants. So these complex organic substances produced by the plant which helps in proper growth and development of plant are called plant hormones, right? So next concept, plant hormones, which are also known as plant hormones, which are also called phytohormones. Phyta means plant and hormones means complex organic substances. Okay, plant hormones or plant phytohormones or plant growth regulators. These are also known as plant growth regulators. Okay, in short they are called PGRs, plant growth regulators. Okay, so various scientists have their great contribution in the discovery of these phytohormones. Like animals, plant body also produces some specific substances which helps in their proper growth and development, right? So what are the characteristic features of hormones first? Because enzymes are also protein substances which helps in the proper growth and development. They also catalyze various reactions, metabolic reactions, right? So what is the difference between enzyme and hormone? So enzymes are the protein substances which are required in very small quantity and they are secreted where they are required. If suppose there is a metabolic pathway going on in the cytoplasm, then they are produced in cytoplasm itself, right? They are available at the site of their action. Whereas hormones are the substances which are secreted somewhere else and they may show their activity at some other places. It means in case of hormones, their site of synthesis and site of action is always different. Okay, they are always required in a specific quantity. आता imagine करा की आपल्या बॉडी मध्ये ग्रोथ हॉर्मोन्स तयार होतात at different stages of our life cycle. Okay, if these growth hormones are produced in more quantity, in large amounts, then also there is problem. If these growth hormones are secreted in very less quantity than required, then also there is problem. So hormones when available in maximum quantity or in minimum quantity, they always produces some specific disorders, right? It means hormones always required in specific optimum quantity, right? And they are used up during the reaction. They are used up in metabolic reactions. Whereas in case of enzyme, always at the end of metabolic reaction, enzyme molecule is obtained as it is without any chemical change in it, right? But hormones are completely used up during the reaction. So this is the specific difference between enzymes and hormones, right? So which different kinds of plant hormones are present in plants? So first one, there are 5 groups of hormones. 5 groups. First one, auxin. Then second one, gibberellins. Third one, cytokinins. Fourth one, ethylene. And fifth one, abscisic acid. Right? So auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, ethylene and abscisic acid. These are 5 groups of hormones very commonly produced in plants. Now, first 3 hormones are mainly described as growth promoters. Growth promoters. They show increase in the growth, enhancement in the growth when secreted by the plant, right? Ethylene is the hormone which in different conditions functions differently. In some plants it may inhibit the growth, whereas in some plants it may promote the growth. So it functions as growth promoter, or sometimes in specific condition it may even function as growth inhibitor. But abscisic acid is especially functions as growth inhibitor. So these are 5 different groups of plant hormones, right? Auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins. These are mainly considered as growth promoters. Ethylene in some specific conditions enhances the growth, whereas in some plants it may even inhibit the growth. And abscisic acid is especially for growth inhibition. It means hormones are the complex organic substances which may regulate the growth. They may either enhance the growth, or they may prevent the growth, or they may control the growth. So they functions in three ways, either for enhancing the growth, or for inhibiting the growth, or to control the growth. So these are known as plant growth regulators. Okay. So let's see one by one each group of these hormones, right? So first of all, auxins. Auxin is a Greek word. The meaning is to grow. It helps to grow. So first group of hormone, that is auxins, right? It's a Greek word. Greek word. What is the meaning of auxin? Auxin means to grow, right? So presence of auxin, or presence of some growth promoting substances in the tip of the plant, shoot tip. This was first suggested by Charles Darwin and Francis Darwin, that is his son, right? Charles Darwin's son, Francis Darwin, right? So it was first suggested by Charles Darwin, but he was unable to extract that substance from the shoot tip. Okay. At that time, Charles Darwin and Francis Darwin were working on a canary grass. Eka grass वरती एक काम करत होते, and they observed that the tip of that grass coleoptile bends towards the light. And Charles Darwin suggested that some growth promoting substances must be synthesized at the tip of this coleoptile, or that small plantlet, and later these substances were transported in downward direction, right? And as a result of which the grass tip bends towards the light, right? आपण बघतो की जर खिडकीमध्ये आपण एखादं झाड किंवा झाडाची कुंडी ठेवली असेल तर ते झाड नेहमी लाईट कडे वाढतं. तर असं का होतं? So that is due to the substances secreted in the tip of that plant. But Charles Darwin was unable to extract that substance. He was unable to give the chemical nature of that substance. He performed one light. When a plant is exposed to unilateral light, right? Eka side is the light त्याला दिला, then that plant bends towards the light. Okay? And then by observing this, he then suggested that there must be some growth promoting substances secreted in the tip of the plant, hence that tip bends towards the light. असं त्यांनी सांगितलं, right? Later, what exactly is secreted in the tip of the plant, and what is the chemical nature of that substance, that was first given by F.W. Wendt. Okay, so the first auxin which was isolated, that was isolated from human urine, and the name given to that substance is heteroauxin, right? So auxin first isolated from human urine, and the name given to this substance is heteroauxin. Later, such a kind of substance is even produced in the plant, was discovered, right? And first of all, the chemical nature of this auxin and name to this substance auxin was given by F.W. Wendt. So F.W. Wendt first isolated and coined the term auxin for these growth promoting substances. F.W. Wendt was able to give the chemical nature of this substance which was secreted, or which was produced in the tip of the plant. Okay. So for that purpose, F.W. Wendt performed a specific experiment, and that experiment is popularly known as Avena curvature test. So how he performed that experiment, how he come to know the chemical nature of that substance, and how he coined the term for this substance, that we will discuss in next lecture. Okay. So till then, goodbye. Have a good day and please be safe at home.